All right, we're going to start by doing a little review of the division that we did in the previous lesson. I've got a long division problem written out here. I did fill in the zeros for where we were missing the terms in the middle. And remember, if you have two variables, the first one is descending powers of x. So I have x to the third, x to the second, x to the first, and x to the 0. The a terms are increasing. So a to the 0, a to the 1, a to the 2, and a to the 3 if you're having trouble setting that up. So works the same as yesterday. I want to be able to eliminate the x cubed. So I need to multiply by x squared. So x squared minus ax squared. Whoops, I'm at x cubed right there. Change your signs, and you get ax squared. Bring down your 0xa squared, and now you want to eliminate ax squared. So you have to multiply by ax. That'll give me ax squared minus xa squared. So minus plus, when I subtract, gives me xa squared minus a cubed, which means I need to multiply by a squared. So a squared gives me xa squared minus a cubed. And when I change my signs, everything cancels out, so the remainder is 0. What we're really calling this is the difference of perfect cubes. You've done the difference of perfect squares many, many, many times, but now we're talking about the difference of perfect cubes. So if I start with x cubed minus a cubed, and I want to find the difference or factor that, it's going to be x minus a times x squared plus ax plus a squared. And we're going to talk about that pattern a little bit more as we go on to a few other examples. Let's go to example A. In example A, the first number I have a cubed root of is x. The second number I take the cubed root of is 8, and the cubed root of 8 is 2. So the numbers I'm going to be working with are x and 2. So when I divide, I have x minus 2. Whatever is here is going to be your first term. It's what you're factoring. It's what you're going to put in the front. And then what's left is going to be x squared plus 4 plus 2x. Now, how did I get that? Whatever this term was right here, I squared to get that term. So I squared x to get x squared. Over here, I squared the 2 to get 4. And how did I get 2x? I just multiplied them together, x and 2, 2x. And that's it. All right, let's try the next one. It's a little bit more difficult because you've got a coefficient. The first thing you take the cubed root of, though, is 8x cubed. The cubed root of that is 2x. And the cubed root of 27 is 3. So 2x minus 3. Whatever's in front, whatever you're dividing by goes in front. Now, inside, you square the first term. When you square that, you get 4x squared. You square the last term, plus 9. And to get the 2 in the middle, you multiply those two. So that would be a plus 6x. So it's a pattern. Just like when you do the difference of two perfect squares, x squared minus 9, it's x minus 3 and x plus 3. So we're constantly trying to think about a pattern. Let's go to the next one. If I have a y cubed and an x cubed, the first cubed root I have is y. The second cubed root I have is x. Since this is a minus, I'm going to write y minus x. Now, how do I get what's left? I square the first term. That gives me y squared. I square the second term. That gives me x squared. How do I get the 2 in the middle? I multiply them. X times y is xy. Letter B, I have a is one of my cubes, and I have 4 is the other cube. So, first term, a minus 4. The sign always comes down. If that's a minus, that's a minus. In the parentheses, first thing I do is square the first one, a squared. Squared the last one, 16. And then multiply them together, that gives me a plus 4a. Now, what's the pattern here? Well, for me, I always remember something called SOAP. when I do SOAP, what that makes me think of is that when you're doing the signs, the S stands for same, which means whatever's here is going to be the same in the first parentheses. Just like here, it was a minus and a minus. That's same. The O is opposite. Because if this is a minus, this has to be a plus. If this was a minus, this was a plus. So it's always going to be the opposite sign. And then the AP stands for always positive. Because that last term is you're squaring something, when you square something, you're always going to get a positive number. So let's take a look by just knowing this new rule. The first cube I have is 2b. The second cube I have is k. So I know I have to start out with 2b and k. Now, how do I know if it's positive or negative? First one is always the same. So there's a minus. Now, in parentheses, the first one gets squared. 2b squared, when you square 2b, you get 4b squared. When you square k, you get k squared, and that's always positive. And then in the middle, you multiply. 2b times k is 2bk. Because this was negative, this one has to be the opposite. That's a positive. Now, you should try letter D, stop the video, try letter D, and then check your answers against the answers in Schoology. Now, on the second page, we're going to do something called the sum of cubes. So the sum of cubes. And I'm not going to take the time to show all the division again like I did on the previous page. You can find it in the filled-in notes in Schoology. But what I want to show you is I want to apply the pattern again. Let's start with letter B since there's a number and or a constant and a variable. So my first cubed root I have is A. My second cubed root I have is 4. So when I start my parentheses, I know I need an A and a 4. Since this is positive, I have to bring the positive down because it's the same. In parentheses, first I square it, A squared. Then I square the 4 plus 16. In the middle, I multiply them, 4 and A. Now, if this was positive, S stands for the same, so the same came down. O is for opposite, so this has to be a subtraction or a minus sign. And then again, this is going to be always positive. So if you can identify your cubes and you can remember the pattern, it's really not very difficult at all. So let's try 8y cubed plus x cubed. So my first cubed root here is 2y. My second cubed root here is x. So I'm going to start out, and I remember I have to do the same, so it has to be plus x. Now, in the parentheses, I square the first one. That's 4y squared. I square the last one. That's x squared. To get the middle term, I multiply them together. 2yx. Now, I've got to put the signs in. This was the same, which means this has to be opposite, so that's got to be a negative, and then always positive for the last term. You should try the other examples and check your answers against Schoology, but these right here are the rules, and these two rules are not given on the formula sheet. So you need to either recognize the patterns